Hello and welcome to Schlock Tactics, the movie podcast where we believe badder is better and aim to review the cretinous killer croc movies so that you don't have to. My name is Ash and I'm joined once again by Mark. Oh, hi Mark.
Good evening.
Yes, that's right. Tonight we are reviewing two infamous B movies featuring your favourite killer animal, the crocodile or the alligator, depending on where you are. Before we get to that, we'll mention the last episode that we did. If you did miss it, it was the time that we reviewed the infamous Troll 2, legendary bad movie on the Mount Rushmore of bad movies. Troll 1 and Troll 2, we've gotten all the Troll movies out of the way, so you can go back and check that out. But today, as I say, we are going to be reviewing, since the new movie, new killer crocodile movie Crawl has just come out in the cinemas, which people may have seen advertised. We thought we'd go back into two of the more lesser known killer crocodile movies for you. So we're going to be reviewing Alligator from 1980 and Blood Surf, aka Crocodilus, from the year 2000. First of all, we will get into Alligator. So as I say, this is from 1980. This comes as part of the wave, no pun intended, of movies that are ripping off Jaws. You name it. After Jaws, basically any slightly dangerous animal was made bigger and more dangerous, and preferably in the water, so that they could do the theme music and rip off Jaws. So everyone's ripping off Jaws in the late 70s, early 80s, and this is finally one where we get a giant crocodile movie, going for the Jaws formula here. One massive dangerous animal terrorizing a local town. So this is a movie I'm very familiar with. It was a favourite of mine to rent on VHS from Blockbuster, my local VHS shop. This was a favourite. The cover had a massive sort of flat alligator in a sewer, which I think I shared on our social media the other day. So the alligator is called Ramon. Which is a terrifying name for a killer alligator. It does star Robert Foster, who was a big sort of movie star in the 60s and 70s, sort of on his way down. And as all big actors on their way down, they usually make a few stop in the B-movie, killer animal movie station. And the director of this movie, he would actually only do one other quite big movie, and that was Cujo, aka the Mad Killer Dog movie. So this is clearly his niche. He can direct animals going mental and attacking people. So this movie Alligator starts off with actually a close-up of an alligator and it's eye-opening, but then you realise that it's in the zoo, so it's fine. But it's not fine because the zookeeper is mauled to death, to which the audience watching the feeding time sort of claps sheepishly, and the little girl says, like, what happened there? And the ambulance men that are sort of carting the bloody body out was like, well, sometimes the gators win. And she's like, okay, great. Good. But yeah, this doesn't dissuade her from getting a baby alligator. You can buy these at the zoo. That sounds weird. Or from a pet shop perhaps, but she does buy a baby alligator. Calls him Ramon, but her dad is not happy with this. He's not happy with her behaviour. She's acting out, so he flushes it down the toilet.
Bad idea.
I mean, I know people do that with like fish, like goldfish when they're dead, but an alligator like down the toilet, it's a bit weird. But obviously, it's a massive MacGuffin. We have to do this so that we get the giant crocodile. You do get kind of this fun, like spiraling effect as the alligator's going down the pipes. So you get the cameras going woo, round and round and round. It's sort of going down on his little sewer adventure, so like flushed away, but with a tiny alligator. And then we fast forward 12 years later, just enough time for an alligator to grow massive in the sewers. Robert Foster makes his appearance and gets the first of many of his sort of zingers in this movie when the pet shop owner says, oh, what are you going to do, call the cops? And he says, I am the cops. He is cops.
I am the law.
You are cops. Yeah. A lot of his one-liners are, I think, vaguely referencing other films or maybe sort of parodying his previous roles. He was a tough guy in sort of cop films. So this is all quite self-aware performance in quite a self-aware film, I think. He's called down to the sewage works where they found many severed limbs just floating up from the sewer system. The worker there even mentions that they found a severed toe of one body, and that was the only bit that they found.
Yeah.
But they still had a funeral. So Robert Foster says I must have been a really small casket. Yeah, so early on you're like, okay, this is going to be kind of funny then.
Yeah.
The pet store owner, it transpires, he sort of catches animals off the street and brings them to the vivisection lab to be donated to this sort of evil local corporation called Slate, which is sort of a vivisection lab where they're testing all sorts of chemicals and things. So he brings them kind of cats and stuff like that, and the scientist is like, puppies, I need puppies. He says the word puppies about
5 times.
Yeah, 500 times,
Yeah.
I think. So we get the picture. Yes, okay, puppies, right, great. So the vet goes and dumps all of the unwanted dogs that he's just captured, and the vivisection has killed them with his experiments. He dumps them all out in the sewers, and then of course we learn that this is where Ramon is still living, and he's gotten a little bit bigger. First of many sequences where you get a POV shot of the crocodile with the Jaws music and the Jaws camera, the Jaws film, basically. Yeah, you get lots of these. Lots of stalking in the sewers as well, which is clever really, because it's a lot cheaper than trying to film something out at sea.
Yeah.
And having to coordinate all of that with the right weather, and this is just a darkened sort of set, presumably, or a sort of sewer-ish location where it's all dark and you can't really see what's happening. You can't really see the monster, so it could be massive, it could not be. You don't know yet.
Keep the lighting low.
Keep the lighting low and make your croc look big. That's what I say. Yeah. So again, there's all this talk. I just love the fact that there's this sort of evil corporation, but it's really, really local. It's a local evil corporation for local people.
Support independent businesses.
Independent supervillains. This doctor, Mr. Slate, whatever he's called, is this sort of Blofeld-looking bald character who wants to hush up the press. We don't want people finding out that we're, dumping animals in the sewer. The local people's animals. People are losing dogs and cats left and right, and they don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
And they're going in the sewer. In fact, the press just sort of speculate that there's a serial killer. We get many bald jokes in this film from Robert Foster. Now, apparently he sort of improvised this in one scene, and the director was so pleased that he was willing to take the piss out of his own baldingness that he wrote several other jokes for other characters to make. However, he's not really that bald. He's slightly thinning at the front, and that's it. It's quite cool that the actor is taking the piss out of himself, because he's quite a tough sort of looking actor. But I have to say, I don't think he's very bald at this point, so I don't know if it always works. Some bloke walks into the police station, says he's got a bomb, big ticking timer on his chest. So they take the radio off of him. It's not a bomb, it's just a radio. A bit more sewer skulking. Madison, Robert Foster's character, Madison, takes a young policeman called Kelly down to the sewer, where they have to sort of get kitted up, and they're told to watch out for the methane. That's the thing that will really get you in the sewers. If you inhale too much methane, if you light a cigarette or something, and you'll blow the whole fucking neighbourhood up. That's the sort of suggestion. Again, this will come up later. Unfortunately, Kelly is mauled by Ramon as well, and there's this sort of bit where Madison's trying to crawl out of the manhole, and he's holding on to Kelly, and he just no, and drops him, and he gets swiped off. You see him sliding out of shot, which is quite fun. Next thing you know, Madison is in hospital, and he says to the nurse, "Well, what the hell am I doing here?" He's like, "I don't know, you just popped out of a manhole and started yelling alligator." He's like, "Well, I've got something to tell you about that, And here we are introduced to the herpetologist, aka alligator expert, Dr. Kendall, who is the love interest for Madison in this. She's the expert on alligators, so she's sort of telling them it's not really possible for an alligator to grow this big in the sewer. You must have been tripping balls in the sewer. You can't have seen a 30-40 foot alligator. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, this sort of sleazy reporter finds out about the alligator from a very loose-lipped nurse. The reporter sort of walks in and says, so what was up with that Madison guy then? And she's like, "Well, let me tell you, he was shouting all about a giant alligator in the sewers, and he was on too many meds, really. I shouldn't have given him too many meds, but there you go, and there's an alligator in the sewers, giant alligator." Where's the fucking DPA here?
Yeah.
The GDPR.
Doctor-patient confidentiality.
Yeah. In 1980, there's no security here. This is terrible. So the reporter goes down because he wants to find out about this giant alligator and ends up getting chomped up. The interesting part is that he's got his camera out at the time, and it's flashing while he's getting eaten. So they end up recovering his body with the film, and it shows just like close-ups of massive teeth and massive like crocodile jaws coming towards the camera, which is pretty cool. That's like your first proper look at the alligator in stills, where it's quite complimentary and looks quite realistic. Good way to introduce your your fake alligator. Eventually then, after these photographs are published, all the authorities all of a sudden believe Madison. Okay, yeah, maybe there is a giant alligator in the sewers, you were right. And they're going to sort of flush them out. So they get all the SWAT, all the army, the National Guard to all go down to these like storm drains like they have in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like Invaders from Mars, when they try and sort of flush them out of the storm drains, and like Them, the Giant Ants movie, that's how that ends as well. Just all the military going into these storm drains. These storm drains are used a lot in like movies, not just monster movies, but like noir thrillers from the 40s and stuff. Like you'll always have these massive storm drains, and even like Terminator 2, when the truck is chasing him on the bike, that's sort of set around this sort of area as well. Quite iconic location to shoot your scenes in LA. But the idea is that they're going to flush it out by sort of hitting bins with baseball bats. It's like the Slipknot approach. Just bah, 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 bah. Doesn't really end up working. We get the line here where this has kind of stuck with me for years and years. He refers to Kendall, the herpetologist, as a kid, and she says, "Oh, I'm 28 years old." He's like, "Well, anyone younger than me is a kid." That's why he calls everyone kids. So it's my favourite line. Again, a parody of a gruff policeman is what this Madison character is. So they aren't able to flush it out the storm drain, so they say, well, that's it. I guess there is no giant alligator down there. We better get out of here before the press try and interview us and stuff like that. But then we get a really memorable scene here where Ramon just emerges right through the street, through the pavement. Some kids are playing baseball and just this massive fake head breaks through the pavement here. Now, this is quite interesting, and I'm not sure if you noticed here, Mark, but there's a combination here of a fake crocodile head and a real crocodile in combination. So it'll switch back and forth from this massive swaying head with the camera next to it. And then all of a sudden you'll see a real alligator with sort of miniature fire hydrant and police cars around it. It's initially quite subtle. You see it a bit more later on, but
I just remember seeing an alligator coming out of a drain and chasing some kids, but didn't really look too...
It was quite low res on YouTube, to be fair. If anyone wants to watch us on YouTube, you can, but it's not great quality. You do get combinations here of practical effects and a genuine real-life alligator being just put in this little set where he can roam around slightly tiny police cars and stuff to make him look bigger, so the Godzilla sort of approach. It's also the approach of really old monster movies like the Gila monster and like 10,000 BC, where they just took like iguanas and lizards and stuck like dinosaur spikes on the back, and like they'll just use that. You're not really able to direct a lizard as well as you could perhaps a prop, but that's the sort of approach they've taken here. I think they've hedged their bets. They're like, look, we've got this animatronic head. It's not great. And it was notorious for malfunctioning, apparently, just like Bruce in Jaws. The mechanical animal, Marilyn Manson album, was not playing ball a lot of the time. And in fact, after this film wrapped, they would donate it to a local sports team where Ramon would become a mascot for the Florida Gators. I don't know what they play, baseball maybe. And he would come out during halftime and sort of do a little dance. Whether, I don't know if this is a guy that has the head on him. I don't know. If anyone has seen Ramon at a local sporting event in America, let us know. But yeah, this is the first time you see the character in full. Sometimes it's props, sometimes it's a real alligator, but that's part of the fun. He eats a cop straight away who accidentally flips his car, which immediately explodes.
It's an incredibly bad crash.
Yeah, it's a really...
really dramatic.
Really disproportionate. Clips a car and just boom! Yeah. And he's still in there trying to get out, and he doesn't realise for ages that he can just get out the window. Yeah. And then he does get out the window and he has his ankles eaten. Yeah. Eaten off, which is quite fun. So yeah, we're getting a bit more gore here. It's pretty good fun. Then there's the introduction of a character called Colonel Brock, who is a real asshole. He's a big game hunter. Ex-military big game hunter, and he's been brought in just to kill this thing. Straight away he's like a sexist pig. He's cracking onto all the women, making weird alligator mating calls to try and crack onto reporters and stuff like that. He's just gross villain. Around this sort of area where the crocodile was last spotted, there's sprung up a bit of a bit of a marketplace. So there's a bloke selling merchandise which has one of the worst puns I could imagine. Alexander the Gator, as in Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
No.
There's a guy selling baby crocodiles again, so the cycle repeats itself. Madison has him arrested, and he says, "What happened to free enterprise, you commie?" Which is a good line. Yeah, it is around this time that they do discover the dead test subjects in the sewer. They've been dumped by Slate Corporation. They find out it's because of growth hormones they were injecting these animals in. That's why these things have happened. Again, quite an overreaction here, where Madison goes to his chief and says, "Look, I found out what happened. It's the Slate Corporation. They've been leaking chemicals." And his chief is just like,
"You're sacked.
You're off the force. Can't be having this." He's like, "Why?" He's like, You've pushed too much." What has he pushed? He's just come to him and told him. Like, what? I don't understand. It's really out of nowhere. He's like, "No, look, you're sacked." Okay, right. It's just an excuse for him to go rogue, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. But the idea is that the police chief is in the pocket of the Slate Corporation, who already know what's going on here, and they want to nip it in the bud. So. But on the way out of the station, he's sure to raid the evidence cupboard, and is able to grab the sort of homemade radio detonation device seen earlier with the bomb threat, and also just some dynamite that was hanging around. So this will come up later. But he has his own IED now. So he continues to go after Ramon. Obviously, he's a man with nothing to lose now. A lot more sewer stalking with Dr. Kendall as well. It's a great scene. Basically, over the course of a night, Ramon wreaks havoc on the town whilst Madison and Kendall just have sex, because Madison's been sacked, so therefore he doesn't really have to hunt the crocodile or figure out where it came from. So he's like, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to go and shag this herpetologist for the night, and you can solve this."
Priorities.
Yeah. So while he does that, loads of people die, including some children who are at a birthday party, a pirate-themed birthday party, and they tell this kid to walk the plank, and then the mum turns on the pool lighting and you can see it lift from underneath. You see the crocodile lurching out, which is a really cool shot.
Yeah.
And the kid gets eaten, and all the blood is sort of lit from below as well, all red. It looks pretty cool. It's a pretty uncomfortable sequence where the Colonel Brock commandeers what he calls the natives, what we would call some young black kids. There's lots of really gross references to jungle and chieftains and all this sort of stuff. It's horrible, but it's all right because it is just a prelude to Brock being eaten whole by Ramon when he wanders down a sort of a misty alleyway.
He shoots him, doesn't he? But it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, he one of the kids tries to shoot him, but he's not been given the proper training of how to operate a sort of elephant gun. Yeah. So it just doesn't work, and he's like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here." So there you go. The racist gets eaten. The racist chauvinist gets eaten. So there's justice.
The gang run off.
And they just run off after having already been paid.
Yeah.
And they've got some pretty expensive looking guns now as well. So there you go. Justice. There's a really quick sequence here which doesn't fit in at all. But it's just some police in a speedboat chasing the alligator in a little lake until they end up hitting it with their boat and jumping the alligator. Yeah. So this is our Happy Days jumping the shark reference. Crowbarred in like nobody's business. Yeah. Just wouldn't it be cool if we jumped over it in a speedboat? Not really, but okay. You've got money to spend on a speedboat scene? All right, let's do it. So there you go. They jump the crocodile instead of jumping the shark. And then we get I think the best scene in the whole movie, the scene I always remember the best, and you'll see it on YouTube in small clips, the dinner party scene.
Oh yeah.
The posh gala. So this is a Slate Corporation having a sort of a function. It's not clear if it's like a wedding or a benefit event. It's not really clear what it is, but it's really posh. And there are waiters and hors d'oeuvres and loads of people wearing white, which will make sense in a minute. As many people wearing white as possible, please. Including the poodle, which discovers Ramon, which is also white. Ramon crashes the party, and again you see the kind of almost the full body practical effects, and I think at this point you realise that in 1980 I would say these are pretty decent practical effects. You know, it's animatronic head, animatronic tail, you know, sort of full front portion of the body.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't constructed an entire alligator because that would be difficult. And even though they said that during production this was quite unreliable and didn't really cooperate, I think it looks pretty good. And it just goes on a fucking massive rampage, and it's great. People are falling in the pool. There's like a bride that falls in the pool for some reason. He's like whipping people with his tail, and people are just flying like 40 miles an hour into like champagne glasses and buffet tables and like wedding cakes.
It makes no physical sense how far they're flying.
Well, that's it. Like you sort of look down and you look up, and people are going like 50 mile an hour full pelt, and you're like, how did that happen? And then it
this little whip of a tail.
And it cuts to the little whip of a tail, and someone goes and gets like smashed again. So it makes no scientific sense.
No.
Slate takes refuge in his limo, and the mayor banging on the window, let me in, because the mayor is all corrupt and he's in bed with the corporation. And he gets what he deserves as well. He gets eaten up as well. And the limo just get all fucking smashed up. So this is a great scene. It's just absolute mayhem. Like about 50 extras just told, look, there will be... Just imagine there's a fucking massive crocodile and react accordingly. So they really go for it. Like, they're like, people losing their shit. This is great. If you only watch this scene on YouTube, I would recommend it. And you get to see some of the great practical effects, particularly when the alligator is chomping people in half and their guts are hanging out. Oh, that's pretty good. Interesting trivia here. I don't know if you knew this. The person who was the production assistant to the practical effects department and was responsible for rigging the guts of the alligator is Bryan Cranston.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The most famous person in this film was responsible for assembling fake.
I thought I might have seen his name on the credits.
Guts. Yeah, I don't know whether
Is he on the credits?
He would have been in there somewhere.
Production credits.
I think so.
Yeah. I thought, oh, what a coincidence, but no.
There you go. That's the Bryan Cranston, one of his first, I guess, forays into film.
He would have been pretty young back then, I guess.
Youngish. I don't know if he's ever been young, but as young as it gets. Yeah, I think he was born 38. Showdown here then, once Madison realises that the alligator's on the loose again, confronts him in the sewer. There's a showdown. There's more cutting between the fake prop and a real alligator. So there'll be a little side-on shot of an alligator just plodding through the sewers, but it looks really small because it will be small compared to what the animal's meant to look like. And then it'll cut to a massive head again. It's not quite as seamless as it was earlier on. But luckily, as I mentioned earlier, he grabbed an explosive device from the evidence room, and he already knows that there's loads of methane down in the sewers. So he ends up rigging the bomb to the alligator, and then his plan is to escape. But then he gets to the top, and someone's parked their bloody car on the manhole cover. Yeah. So Kendall has to say, "Look, move your car. Why? Just do it. There's someone in the sewer." What?
Yeah, she ends up just like
move.
Pulls her out of the car.
There's no time to explain. She just carjacks this person so she can get out of the way. And then Madison...
It's a really good moment, actually.
Yeah, it's funny. Madison gets out of the manhole, and then this fucking manhole explodes about 15 times, shot from like 15 different angles. I think the suggestion was that manhole covers all over the town were exploding, but it was clearly one shot from several different angles. The old action movie explosion. Ramon's head explodes in two, and loads of guts come flying at the screen, made by Bryan Cranston's fair hand. So there you go. And of course, at the very, very end of the film, when it was all a happy ending, we get another shot down in the sewer, and out of the pipe plops
another baby alligator.
Another baby, presumably the one that was confiscated earlier on by the capitalist. The capitalist guy, the free market guy. Yeah. So there you go, setting this scene for a sequel, which actually would arrive 11 years later in 1991 with Alligator 2, The Mutation. Haven't seen it.
I was going to say, I'm assuming there's a sequel, but I didn't.
I mean, they put these endings in there anyway, regardless, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can always chop it out if the film doesn't do very well on the home video release. So, yeah. So there you go, Alligator from 1980, a classic of the giant killer animal genre. What were your overall thoughts on this one, Mark?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was pretty schlocky.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite fast-paced, especially the first sort of half.
Hmm.
Plenty of action, plenty of people getting eaten. Like, there was probably a bit more than I was expecting, I think.
People losing their shins.
Yeah.
Things exploding.
Lots of legs being bitten off and, people getting devoured.
Exclusively legs most of the time. Yeah.
The weird thing is, I don't think I've really seen Robert Forster in anything from the 60s and 70s. But I've seen him in, like, Jackie Brown. And he's got a very, very small part in Mulholland Drive.
Right.
So to me, this is like a young Robert Forster. Okay. This is the youngest I've ever seen him.
I don't remember either of those. No.
So it's good. I was thinking, that's a young Robert Forster. And then I realised that actually, no, this is in his later years.
Yeah. This is him on his way down.
Yeah. He did far better things before this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. It was schlocky. It was daft. It was funny.
But I did read that Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of this film. That's why he cast him in Jackie Brown, and he modelled that character after this, or he named another character Madison maybe after this one.
Yeah, I haven't seen that film for a long time.
Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty self-aware, this movie, isn't it? I think that's to its credit. It knows that it's knocking off Jaws very much. Yeah. It tells you it pretty early on. It knows that it's sending up cop melodramas. It knows all of the things that it's sort of doing. I think, and it's not trying to be massively clever at any point. So
no.
This is one of my favourites from my childhood. Would be rented on VHS quite a lot. I probably wish that I had a little baby alligator of my own, but
put it down the toilet.
But yeah, we've learned that we can't be trusted with alligators. Certainly not in America. So that's Alligator from 1980, and we'll move on next to Blood Surf, aka Crocodilus. From the year 2000. Now, the thing about this movie is you'll find very little information whatsoever about it. So I can't tell you a lot about the making of it. Can't tell you why it was called Blood Surf. I also can't tell you why it was also called Crocodilus, although I would like to know.
There's no trivia on IMDb.
There's no trivia on IMDb. If anyone knows anything about this movie, let us know and then stick it on IMDb. No one will challenge you. You can put what you want.
Yeah.
All we do know is that it is a killer crocodile movie from the year 2000, although it's sort of quite confused about whether it's a killer shark movie or a killer crocodile movie, which we'll get to. All I do know about this, and it's something I found out looking at it, was the very last film that Trimark Pictures ever produced, which was a very schlocky, low-budget studio that ran actually only about 10 years, from sort of 89 to 2000. Didn't do a lot, but what they did produce was the Leprechaun franchise.
Ah, yes.
Including Leprechaun in Space and Leprechaun in the Hood, which you can check out in the archives. We did review both of those movies. So their reputation precedes them, but unfortunately this was the death knell for Trimark Pictures, was this schlocky croc movie. We start off with some terrible font. It looks like it's Microsoft Word typed over the top of it. We get a sort of a montage of some people being killed in the water. It's not clear if it's a shark or a crocodile, which is a good summary of this film. It's not clear if it's a shark or a crocodile.
Just lots of blood.
We get lots of exterior shots of this mysterious island. I was reminded a lot of Lost. There's all this sort of tribal boom, 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 boom music, and lots of airplanes flying around this island. Completely unclear where in the world this is meant to be. The Pacific, somewhere, Philippines-ish, Indonesia.
Somewhere where they have temples, and
we're close-ish to Australia, we're led to believe. So we'll say the South Pacific, somewhere out there. In the credits, we see initially credits for the animatronic effects. And I'm thinking, it's the year 2000. Animatronic effects. Like, we just watched animatronic effects in 1980, and they were pretty good. But, you expect, I think, CGI by 2000. But there you go. A little taster. Straight away in the helicopter, as these surfer people are coming in, they say, "Whoa, what was that film with the sharks in it? Jaws." Oh, yeah, that's the one. So that's the Jaws reference. It's not very witty.
You want to make it any more obvious that they're going to reference that film? Or...
They didn't try to make a joke of it, really. They just said, "Can we have one of the characters mention the film Jaws?"
Yeah.
There we go. It's out there. we can move on. So we've got this sort of MTV documentary director who's his plan is to bring these expert surfers, one called Boggs.
I don't know.
Stupid fucking name, Bog. Bog and Jeremy, of these characters, these expert surfers. Cecily, who is the camera woman. And the idea for the director is to do some blood surfing. Whether this is a real thing or not, I don't know. But the idea is that you put chum in the water and then you send people out to surf so that you can get some footage of them surfing with sharks sort of in the foreground.
Does this exist outside of this film?
I don't know. If you are a blood surfer, message us. We want to know. I suspect no one really does this, but
No.
So we get the first of many sort of surf rock interludes, where it's just lots of footage of waves and palm trees and surf rock, which is pretty fun. They have to convince the locals to take them to this place called, I believe it was called Lilo Key, or whatever the fuck it's called. This is part of this island where, as the locals point out, you don't want to go there. It's shark infested. And one of the surfers is just like, yeah, no, yeah, man. It's sort of this Jeremy character reminds me of like Stifler from American Pie. He's that sort of, or like Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
He's there to be a like just really obnoxious rubber-faced fucker. Now they also run into this sort of gruff captain in the bar later on that night, and they're trying to. It's not really clear what the point is here, because they've already got some locals to take them, but then they bump into this captain and he tries to bribe him to tell him where the best sharks are or something like that, and he says, no, I won't do it. And he's like, oh, okay. And then the captain's girlfriend puts on this like really cheesy disco house music and does like a little, it's meant to be a sexy dance.
Dance, yeah. Quote marks.
Mark's doing quote marks.
Yeah.
It meant to be a sexy dance, but like it's so awkward. And all the surfer guys are like biting their lip and like going, oh wow, look at that girl. And it's just fucking cringy and horrible. No, I didn't get the point. His girlfriend does a stripper dance and then he comes over and the captain says, oh yeah, I've reconsidered now and I'll do it.
It's like, what was the dancing for?
How did the dance achieve that? Maybe the idea was that I think she was trying to like emasculate him and say like, oh, we never do anything exciting, so she does a sexy dance to some guys and that makes him jealous. That's the only thing I can think of. The surfer guy's joke, like, is she a local? Other one says, no, she's universal. But then later on in the evening, the captain and his girlfriend sort of kiss and make up. And you can tell that because he is ripping her top off and bending her over the side of his boat in plain view of everybody in the harbour. And the surfers just sit there and watch it quite enthusiastically. Jeremy, the bleach blonde sort of goofy guy, is woken up the next day by a beautiful local girl called Lemia. They all get suited up in chainmail. What the camera woman does anyway. If that wasn't bad enough, they all cut their foot with a knife so that they can bleed a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
As in addition to chucking like bloody fish into the sea, they also cut their foot as well.
Let's make this even more dangerous.
Yeah, because they're really fucking hard. You know, really, this is like Point Break type of characters, but in a Jaws film. You know, that's what they're going for. Lots of sort of stock footage of sharks here, superimposed on footage of some people surfing. It's obviously not the actors. So the fakeness of this scene is kind of like threefold. It's like some stock footage of some sharks that aren't really there over some footage of some people surfing that aren't really there.
Yeah.
And then cutting back to the actors just on their paddleboards sort of going, oh man, that was extreme. Like none of this is connected. It's such a discord, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly not the actors surfing, and you wouldn't expect it to be. But then the surfers clearly aren't surfing with sharks, which you also wouldn't expect it to be. So it's just a stupid idea, really, which is never going to work. But you just end up with these like ghostly shark fins floating past these surfer guys that don't really look like the actors. It's a big fucking mess. Cecily is sort of attacked by the sharks, so they sort of give it a break. And then the sharks actually get eaten and loads of blood spurts up in the air. This is about 25 minutes into the film, and it was at this point that I remembered that this is not a shark movie. This is a crocodile movie.
Yeah.
It just hit me. I was like, what the fuck was that? Oh, yeah. It's a crocodile film.
I thought that as well.
Because they didn't mention, obviously, crocodiles the entire first act.
No.
It was shark, surfing. I was like, okay, yes, this is a surfing shark film. So, again, very confused direction here with this film. Like, if it didn't have a massive picture of a crocodile on the cover, you could say it was a twist.
Yeah.
But it's not a twist. The synopsis mentions a giant crocodile. The poster has a giant crocodile. The alternate title is Crocodilus. So it's no clever twist. It's, they just couldn't decide whether they want to do a shark movie or a crocodile. Yeah. Why not do both? So this is where we get the sort of left turn where we move into a crocodile movie. Jeremy and Lemire explore the sort of temples, while Boggs does a bit more surfing. One of the funniest scenes here in the film. Jeremy is sort of getting down to business with Lemire, and he says, "How old are you anyway?" And she says, "Oh, I'm going to be 15. We start pissing ourselves, and we laugh over the next little bit of dialogue.
Yeah.
And then we see them fucking in the sacred temple pool. So we're thinking this guy has just violated a 14-year-old. We're panicking. But on closer inspection, we rewound the film, and it turns out she says, "I'm going to be 15. And then really quietly, "No, I'm actually 19.
Yeah, I'm 19, silly. And he's like, "Oh, that's fine then." Just suddenly
like,
starts
"That's fine then."
like crazy.
Thrusting in the little lagoon for a good 3 minutes while her parents get eaten.
After that, you find out she's 17.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh no!" And then he's like, "Wait, is that legal here?"
Yeah, which it almost certainly is.
Yeah.
And then she gets eaten anyway, so who cares? He might have very much become a nonce, but it's fine because she's just been eaten by a crocodile, so we won't worry about that now. They discover the wrecked boat with her parents, the sort of local guides. "Oh no, we're stuck on this little island now. This little the tape is still in there as well, so someone has to dive down and get it." And of course, you get the obligatory Jaws jump scare where the head comes floating out of a part of the boat. Is just ripped off. Note for note from Jaws, not particularly clever. Almost immediately after ripping off Jaws, there's a scene of the pier exploding with all the planks being shot up, which is a rip-off of Godzilla from 1998, which we reviewed a couple of episodes ago. That's the pier scene from that being referenced. And then they found out that they'd been marooned on an island with pirates on it. Some local sort of Hispanic pirates. It's what kind of makes me think they're in the Philippines, because some of them are speaking Spanish. They tell him that there's a giant crocodile, and so he decides he'll reference Godzilla as well. So again, the rules in this film are you can rip off whatever you want as long as you say the title of the movie out loud. It's like in Uno. You have to say Uno, otherwise you're out of the game.
Yeah.
Jaws, 3 times Jaws. We can rip it off now. No lawsuits.
Piranha, Godzilla.
Yeah. The surfing survivors get stuffed in the boat here with the pirates. But then no sooner have they been locked up, or you think, "Oh, okay, we're going to have a bit of downtime here." No. The massive crocodile leaps out of the water and comes crashing down onto the pirate ship. So they take this opportunity of sort of bit of mayhem and chaos to push the pirates overboard and steal their boat. But then no sooner have they done that than the pirates sort of throw grenades at them and shoot them, and then the boat explodes. So it's an action-packed sort of 3 minutes here. This is just after our takeaway arrives as well, so it's very tense scene here.
I was trying not to look at my food too much.
You might miss the leaping crocodile. They all get rescued by the gruff captain from earlier, who's been sort of floating in the area, just in case, I guess. So they're all saved, yay! And then down in the cabin, the director proposes a toast to one of the characters who dies, but then this just ends up being every character saying yes to Lemire, yes, also to this guy, no, to this guy. So it's basically a handy recap of everyone that's been murdered so far, in case you'd forgotten. But it's also proposing a toast as well. It's quite clever. So at this time we get another one of these flashbacks here with the blood and the people in the water, and we realise it's the flashbacks of the captain, because he's come across this crocodile before. So here is the Moby Dick kind of angle here, where he's been defeated by this crocodile before, but now he's come back to get him. He's come back for revenge against this massive beast. They don't actually say Moby Dick out loud, so I'm not sure if this works, but that is the idea. Captain Ahab, the captain's girlfriend, mentions to the director that this crocodile is 31 feet long, 3,000 pounds, the biggest crocodile ever in the world. So the idea is that he's like, oh, this sounds like a pretty good movie. You know, my shark surfing movie is done, but what about the biggest crocodile ever? Sounds pretty good. So he decides to nickname this crocodile Big Mick. Yeah, we just get a lot of this crocodile attacking them. Practical effects in this one, really not as good as the practical effects in 1980, which is weird. 20 years have passed here. The practical effects are a little bit panto, I would say. The CGI even worse. There are issues with the kind of scale of the creature, no pun intended. Sometimes it looks massive, sometimes it doesn't. When it's in the water, it looks small. When it's out of the water, its head's like the size of a car. Yeah, it's all over the place in terms of the creature design. They haven't really coordinated this very well. Poor old Jeremy is eaten while the crocodile's attacking the ship. Tries to stab it in the head several times. It just flips him up in the air, and he's like flying in the air for about 10 seconds. I was like, it lands in its mouth. The director sort of is a bit of a cowardly character. He tries to surf away, and he gets eaten as well. So we're down to Boggs, Cecily, and the captain's girlfriend. The captain gets eaten as well. It's a weird sort of third act here. Gets super like gory all of a sudden.
Yeah. There are some good kills.
It gets kind of good.
Yeah.
The captain gets like chomped in half, and you just see from his torso downwards is just like flopping bits of gristle. And,
I wasn't expecting that, because we hadn't had anything like that in this film up until that point.
I haven't had anything resembling a budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Or effects of any kind. Yeah.
Good.
It's not bad.
Quite well done. Yeah.
It's certainly passable effects when the gore's happening. One of the pirates resurfaces, again gets a bit sort of rapey, but she skewers him on a booby trap. Again, amazing gore on this one. The spike goes right through his mouth and at the back of his head.
That was really good.
Cannibal Holocaust sort of stuff. Girls, so it's just the two girls now on Boggs. They gingerly climb over what Stuart Lee would call a jungle canyon rope bridge, with the planks obviously giving way every now and then. You know, classic. There's this ludicrous bit where the crocodile is chasing them and ends up sort of getting stuck on an embankment. So they get their tits out and like, woo, yeah, you want this, don't you? I bet you want this. So we're thinking like, what the fuck? What is this? And then the Cecily character says, that's what you call croc teasing.
Yeah. I'm just like wondering, why are they getting their cleavage out? Like, what is this for? And they obviously like came up with the joke before, just worked their way backwards.
I mean, there's already been a lot of tits in this film, to be fair.
Yeah.
The first act was more tits than sharks.
Yeah.
More tits than crocs as well. So there's a precedent. Boggs returns with some explosives that he found somewhere. He starts sort of doing a bit of croc teasing himself. Starts shouting at the crocodile, "You're a belt! You're a suitcase!" Now, they didn't shout out eraser here, but they are definitely ripping off Arnold Schwarzenegger kicking an alligator in a razor and calling it luggage, but not being as pithy as Arnie. So the croc kind of rushes them at this point, and it's again a super messy mixture of like rubber sort of puppet, a miniature sort of rubber thing, maybe a real crocodile in here, maybe, I don't know. It's all happening so fast. Sometimes it's CGI. Crocodiles like jumping everywhere, like crocodiles don't really jump. This one does. He propels himself sort of 40 foot through the air like a flying crocodile and ends up impaling himself on a massive spear. And that's it for the massive crocodile here. So Boggs and Cecily just sort of start humping in the grass. and then we get a close-up of the sort of river. Some sinister music plays, but there's no baby crocodiles or anything. It's just they couldn't even be bothered with that. It was just like, what if we just play the scary music again, and people would be like, oh, okay. And then it just roll the credits and roll the surf rock again. Stock surf rock. Stock rock. Yeah. I would say, if like Frank Black was singing over the top of this, you'd think it was great. But, this was just pretty standard stuff. So there it is, Blood Surf, aka Crocodilus, from the year 2000. What did you think of this one, Mark?
Yeah, it was good. Lots of tits. Lots of bad acting. Story just sort of went off a bit on one part, but yeah, it was pretty good fun. I enjoyed it.
Ticks a lot of boxes, like you said.
Yeah.
Blood and tits. Those are two massive boxes for horror films.
I did get a lot of laughs out of this, actually. It was good. It was good fun.
Yeah. It's interesting for us to review movies around the year 2000, because it's a period that we can actually remember the fashion and the expressions. And perhaps we knew some surfing characters like this, back in our younger years. So it's always interesting to see. And of course, this is a sort of an awkward transition between practical effects and CGI. The late 90s, early 2000s was really a difficult time for filmmakers to decide which you should go for, because there'd been some really successful films like Terminator and The Abyss and stuff like that had done CGI brilliantly, which led a lot of people to think, great, CGI, that's what we're doing now, fuck practical effects. And then you get stuff like Catwoman and Scorpion King and stuff like that, So it's worth hanging on to practical effects, which they did do, I think, to their credit in this. If it had all been CGI, it would have looked a lot worse, I think. So, yeah, pretty fun, very schlocky, an interesting concept. A bunch of surfers go trying to find sharks, but find a giant crocodile instead. What a twist.
Yeah, it was a bit weird.
Yeah, maybe it should have been a shark film. Who knows? But yeah, that's Blood Surf. Point Break meets Jaws, let's say.
Yeah. Meets
Alligator. Mark, if you had to flush one of these movies down the toilet where it would succumb to growth hormones and toxic waste and such, and if you had to sail away with one to a picturesque South Pacific island, which would you flush? Which would you take on a surfing holiday?
It's tough. Probably laughed a little bit more in Blood Surf. But I'm going to say Alligator.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've got a lot more attachment to it. I saw it a lot when I was a kid, and it's just I think it's a better made movie, and they are more self-aware when they are ripping off the films. They don't just say the film out loud and carry on. They do it with a bit of wit and a wink and a nudge to the camera, which I think is essential when you're treading another film's sort of path. It's slightly better made. The effects are actually way better in 1980 than they were in the year 2000.
That's surprising, actually.
Yeah. Robert Foster is pretty funny, and Blood Surf is just a made for TV kind of cobbled together kind of thing, and like I say, it'd be the last thing that the studio ever produced. So obviously they were running out of money, ideas, enthusiasm. So yeah, I would agree. Alligator here is a superior killer croc movie if you guys are going to check one out. So recommendations. So there are actually quite a lot of good killer crocodile movies. One main one that springs to mind is Rogue from around 2007-ish. It was directed by the guy that did Wolf Creek, the Australian director, and it is basically another enormous saltwater crocodile that comes down a sort of tidal river, and some boat of tourists gets stranded on a little island, and that's him just stalking them. Really good CGI effect on the crocodile in this one. From the same year, actually, 2007 was a really strong year for crocodile movies. There was a film called Blackwater. That's a slightly different one in that there are a few crocodiles and people get sort of stuck in a mangrove swamp. So you can't even see if they're in the water, and the boat sinks, and they have to kind of cling to all these mangroves and crawl their way through them without these crocodiles coming up. So that's really tense, really good as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, is Eaten Alive from 1979-ish. Toby Hooper's sort of Texas Chainsaw meets some crocodiles kind of thing. That's pretty good as well. And if you just want sort of killer animal movies as well, Piranha, Joe Dante's Piranha from the late 70s is also great. And Piranha 3D, I was actually reminded of quite a lot with Blood Surf. Piranha 3D is about a sleazy film director who does Girls Gone Wild sorts of videos, spring break girls getting their tits out videos, and goes to a lake in America, and all these prehistoric massive piranhas leak into the lake and start chomping off people's tits and dicks and stuff like that. So Piranha 3D is brilliant. If anyone hasn't seen that, that's only from a few years ago. I would recommend that as well. Please do subscribe to the podcast. It means every time we release an episode, you'll be the first one to know about it. If you could give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, that would be much appreciated as well. As I mentioned earlier, there is a brand new killer crocodile film out called Crawl. I'm going to go and see that one next week, and I will be doing one of my short, sharp Schlocks reviews on the YouTube channel to let you know what I thought of that. So we'll see if Alexandre Aja, the famous French horror director, has done a good job with the Killer Croc movie in 2019. So keep an eye on the YouTube channel, subscribe there as well, so you get all our latest videos. All the podcasts go on there, and all my short reviews of newer movies go on there as well, so keep an eye out. That has been another episode of Schlock Tactics. My name is Binash, and I have been joined once again by Mark.
Night.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.